Okay, cool. Right, let's get kicking things off. So thank you very much for joining us today. This is the Buying and Selling in Midlothian webinar. With us today is myself. My name's Karen. I'm from the marketing team in ESPC. So if you have any questions after this, please feel free to message myself at marketing@espc.com and we'll forward your query to the relevant person. We've also got Ash from ESPC who's going to be giving us our Midlothian market overview. She'll be leading the presentation and is another friendly face to help answer any queries about data and about what we've gathered in our house price report. And we've got Kim, who is from McDougall McQueen. She's our property expert today, so will be leading the Q&A. So thank you to those who have asked pre-submitted questions. Today we'll get onto that towards the end of the webinar once we've done our initial presentation. But if there is any questions that spring to mind whilst we go through the data and advice, please just pop it in the Q&A box. That's at the very bottom of your screen, and we'll do our very best to get around to them towards the end of the webinar, provided we still have time. And any kind of question goes about Midlothian and property, Kim is an expert. Anything we can ask, we will do our very best to get back to you after the webinar too. So to kick off, let's go with our presentation. I am going to be sharing my screen, and Ash, please just let me know when you would like me to change the screen.
Yeah, if you want to just pull up the presentation, that is brilliant. Thank you so much, Karen. Hi, everyone. As Karen said, my name's Ash, and today we're going to be talking you through some of the overall market data that's covering the last quarter for Midlothian. So that is encompassing the 1st of December all the way through to the 28th of February. So a little bit of a slighter, shorter 3 months there, but we're going to run you through some key area focuses as well. In terms of buying and selling and just any trends that we are seeing. So as Karen mentioned, please just feel free to drop in any comments and ask any questions. All of this information is available on our house price report. We do it by area and it covers, again, the exact same timescales as we have just mentioned there for the last quarter. So yeah, Karen, if you want to just pop to the first slide and we can talk through some overall market stats. Yeah. Thanks so much. So what we thought we'd do first of all is just to give you a little bit of a breakdown of some of the terminology that we use when we're talking about the market. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of when we're speaking about things, just what that translates through to. So one of the first things is property volumes. When we're looking at our data for house price reports and just overall activity in the area, we look at the property volumes. And that encompasses things like the property listings. So when we mention listings, that means how many new properties are coming onto the market within a certain time frame. We also look at sales volumes, and that is, again, just how many properties have been sold within the area or overall. So that is the property volumes that we'll be discussing today. When we have a look at mention things like under offer, and we mention this when we talk about, things like time to sell. So average time to under offer, that's how quickly a property moves to under offer. And that really just means that when an offer has been accepted, by the seller, and that just kind of leads on throughout the full process. But we will refer to that in terms of how quickly things are selling. Again, when we're talking about closing dates, that one is just usually advised with your solicitor when you are selling your property. But we'll talk about that in terms of, how many people are interested in properties, and it usually gives us a good indication as to how popular properties, are going for. And again, that's something that you would speak to your solicitor about or can get more information there. In terms of home report valuation, so we often refer to saying things like, how much properties are going over home report valuation. So essentially your home report, I'm sure everyone that's listening knows, is for prospective buyers, and that just gives a little bit more of an in-depth property overall, look at a property so that you can discuss that with your solicitor when you are looking to put in for an offer. But we'll talk about that in terms of how many, what's actually going over the home report valuation when buyers are paying a premium. So if we just move on to the next slide, Karen, that would be fab, thank you. So as I said, we're just going to be talking through the last quarter. And I think overall what we are seeing, and this is across the board and it's not just, you know, specific to Midlothian, is that we're seeing a little bit more of a rebalancing of the market and a little bit more of a normalisation, as we'd maybe like to call it. The last few years, with everything that has happened over 2021-22, there's still been a lot of high buyer and seller demand, and we are still seeing that. But I think what the last quarter has to take into consideration is things like economic factors. You know, we've got things like the cost of living increases, but also seasonality. So I'm sure, as Kim would agree here, usually when we look at things like December, January, February, they tend to often be a little bit of a quieter couple of months there. So that will be taken into consideration as well when we're looking at some of our data. So the first one that we can see here is the sales volumes are down slightly. So we're seeing 14.5% based on year. But I think, again, that is just in comparison to last year, which was 2022, which we still saw a lot of pent up demand. So having those sales volumes brought down ever so slightly is just, again, going back to that kind of normalisation. And we are seeing that across the board at ESPC. It's not just specific to us in Midlothian. We are seeing the average selling price has crept up there by 6.8% year on year, which is fantastic. And I think, again, that's just really reinforcing strong buyer demand, and that there are still premiums being paid over home report valuation. So you can see that down at the bottom there. That's down again slightly by 2%, but that's almost the same as last year. So that's not a massive change. But total sales values, again, just down ever so slightly, and median days to offer is still moving really quickly. So I think what we can summarise really is by saying we're still seeing really strong buyer demand, really strong seller interest. Again, this is just taking into consideration seasonality, but we are just seeing that more normalisation of the market. Kim, is that what you're seeing from your end? Does those stats?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that time of year we're very used to things typically changing just because of the time of year, and there does tend to be less properties on the market. People think that, you know, it's not a good time to sell, even though, you know, very much supply and demand is there, even though at that time of year. But yeah, I mean, 9 days to under offer is still a fantastic result. Yep.
Amazing. And I think that's like we're starting to see, again, that trend of people looking to live outside Edinburgh city centre, and Midlothian is a great place for that. I mean, you've got excellent transport, amenities, and again, there's a lot of different, you know, properties that are more affordable for buyers as well. So it's always a really good place to look if you are looking to buy a property. But first up, what we're going to do now is just talk you a little bit through a closer look into some properties that we can talk you through in terms of area. So Kim, this is where you're based, in Penicuik.
Yeah, well, I've moved now. I'm in Dalkeith, but certainly we do have office. I used to be there, and we do have offices in Penicuik, so very much still involved in that area. And yeah, there's a lot going on in Penicuik just now. We've got a lot of new build developments, which really is pushing up people. That live there want to stay there, so you can see a lot more properties going on the market in that area, because the people want to buy the new builds, and so that's pushing things up. But a great place to stay. There's very much semi-rural, rural areas, and then you have the new developments that, you know, are very family orientated, and very close to street and retail park. We've got great bus services into Edinburgh, so yeah, it's very well sought after.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Kim. And when we're looking at things like the average selling price, I mean, this is just average across all the properties that we have going on to ESPC that are being sold through us. So the average selling price for the last quarter is sitting at 229,060. So that's still a really good average selling price. What we can see there is, even if I break that down, the average selling price for a flat in Penicuik is £140,750. And a house is sitting at a higher average selling price of £237,000 and £88,000. So that's still amazing. We're seeing that properties, when they are coming on, they're just, you know, flying off the shelves there. I mean, under offer, 18 days is still really fast. And again, we're seeing that across the board, but 18 days is particularly quick for, you know, homes that are coming on in Penicuik. Again, we're seeing here that buyers are still paying a premium over the home report value, so 102.2%. And again, I think that if we widen that out to the 6 months, just to give you a better overview there, we're seeing that sitting at 104%, so 4% over. So we do know that's still popular. Buyers are still definitely wanting to try and pay a premium for these properties. And again, we can see that through closing dates. So 22% of homes that are coming onto the market are actually going to a closing date. So again, that's just a kind of strong indicator there of buyer demand. So next up, we're going to have a quick look at Bonnyrigg. Perfect, thanks, Karen. Again, so when we're looking at that, we can see, you know, again, very similar. Average selling price there is sitting at £253 and £902, so still a really strong average selling price. Again, when we're looking at the property volumes there, insertions were down slightly, but we're seeing that sold properties are actually up by 3.7%. So there's still a lot of homes being sold through Bonnyrigg as well. The average selling price there, so that's now obviously sitting at £253,902 for the last quarter. But if we compare that year on year, so we look back to the same time frame last year, it's actually up by 20.8%, which is really encouraging as well. Again, we're seeing strong buyer demand. We know that 105.1%, that means 5.1% on average is the amount that's attained over home report value, value. So again, just showing you that people still want to pay those premiums and that homes are going to a closing date of 21%. So is there anything you're seeing on the ground, Kim, in terms of Bonnyrigg?
Yeah, Bonnyrigg again is similar to Penicuik. However, there's a few more developments in Bonnyrigg, so we've got a lot more new builds coming around. So again, you know, there's people selling to stay in that area to buy the bigger new builds. But great, again, you're very close to Edinburgh. You know, people, because we've been through COVID and people's circumstances with working from home more, and people wanting to come out from Edinburgh out to this way to get, you know, more for their money, more like office space and gardens and things like that. So yeah, it's really taken off as well.
Definitely. And I think, again, just after lockdown, I know that I was the same. It was like, oh, I just would love a garden, and you know, transport, like you can get straight into the city centre and commute, just makes all the difference, really. So we have seen a lot more of that trend of people trying to look out with the city centre. So as you just said there, Kim, it's just providing all the best opportunities to do so. Yeah. Perfect. And we'll have a look at Dalkeith now. So if we have a look through here, again, we are just seeing properties that are coming onto the market. We're down ever so slightly. So they were down by 6.7%, but that's not, you know, huge. And again, in terms of seasonality, we're still seeing some really strong figures of properties coming on and being sold in Dalkeith as well. So for the last quarter, the average selling price was £181,743. The median days to under offer for Dalkeith, we're sitting at 28 days. Again, we're still seeing those premiums that are being paid. So 103.8% over home report valuation is still a strong amount. And we're seeing slightly less homes going to closing date. It's sitting at 10% there, but it's still was really strong buyer and seller demand. So yeah, anything to add on it for Dalkeith that you're seeing, Kim?
Other than we've got 2 offices, and the property hubs from there, so it's been interesting because obviously we were in Penicuik before, but it's a very bustling town, Dalkeith, probably one of the more busier towns in the Midlothian area, and much more central, obviously, to getting into Edinburgh. And we've got the Borders rail link, which is just up at S Bank there, but you can get into Edinburgh in 25 minutes. By the other side, going down to Tweed Bank's about 45 minutes, which is fantastic for people who do want to like have best of both worlds, because they can live out here but still work in Edinburgh and not have a lot of hassle to get there. But beautiful places out here. We've got the Dalkeith Country Park, we've got Iron Mills Park, we've got Newbattle Abbey College. It is really a lovely place to be.
Amazing, definitely. And I think it's really good in terms for buyers and for sellers. So we're still seeing those volumes of properties coming on. But in terms for sellers, if they are thinking about putting their home on the market, there's still, you know, strong prices being paid over home valuation. So it's a win-win for both parties, which is great. Next up, we're just going to have a wee look at Lonehead. So again, just running through the same stats for you there. We have seen quite a good increase in terms of sales and insertions coming on in this area. And we have seen an uplift in that over the last 6 months. But in terms of the last quarter, the average selling price for Lonehead is sitting at £223,857. And that's actually up by 5.6% year on year. So we have seen that grow. And when we have a look again, 15 days to under offer. So from when a property comes on to when it's marked as under offer, 15 days is still extremely quick. So again, that just shows you the demand that's there from buyers. Once again, just the same themes that we're seeing here. There's still that home report valuation attained. We're still seeing strong buyer demand in terms of how much the premiums are being paid. So 104.6%. And again, that just translates through into homes that are going to a closing date at 29% as well. So that is really good to see. I think the next one we've got up is we're going to have a look at Gorebridge. So again, just the average selling price here is sitting at £222,591. And again, if we compare that to the same time frame as last year, it's sitting exactly roughly about the same. I think we're up 0.1% in terms of the selling price. But again, if we have a look over the last 6 months, so if we widen that time frame out, the average selling price is actually up by 17.4%. So it just shows you, in terms of we were talking about seasonality and what happened over the last quarter. And when we do kind of widen that out to 6 months, we're actually seeing an increase of 17.4% uplift there. Again, in terms of median days to under offer, that's sitting at 31 days, a little bit slower there. But in terms of average home report valuation attained, I mean, it's sitting slightly over home report. But again, if I just widen that data out and we have a look over the last 6 months for Gorebridge, it's actually sitting at 104.6%. So once again, we're just seeing those premiums being paid. Kim, I think that's it, isn't it? Those stats over the last 3 months are sometimes hard to dictate into what's happened as a full on the market, because it has been a quieter few months in terms of Christmas and into New Year, which we usually see anyway as a normal trend. But I think it's safe to say that we're still seeing really strong seller and buyer demand out there.
Absolutely. And one of the things is, I know we talk about how quick we sell a property, and to be honest, that it's not always about being quick. It's if you choose a good agent, they will want to test the market for you and to try and achieve a closing date for you to get the best possible price for your property. So it's not always about like speed. That's a fair point to make, that some will take longer, but it depends on client circumstances as well. There's no pressure there for them to accept something that they don't want to. It's about getting the best for them.
Definitely, that's 100% right, Kim. And I think what we'd probably want to say as well is all these figures are averages, aren't they? So I think that if you are thinking about selling or buying, I think for anyone who is thinking about selling, is getting in touch with yourself and just having those conversations and having a look, because every property differs, doesn't it? These are averages. So a house compared to a flat, they'll be completely different. So just make sure that if you are looking to buy or even to sell, that you are getting that expert advice, and you've got access to all that data, Kim, that you can go in and really narrow that down by postcode, by street, by house. So I think it's definitely worthwhile having a really good conversation with your solicitor, estate agent who can do that. But yeah, and I think overall we are still seeing that strong buyer and seller demand. We are seeing a slight cooling, and I think this is across the the whole of the market at the moment, where we might start to see things normalise back to 2019 levels. But I mean, I think it's safe to say again, Kim, the last couple of years have been a bit, manic, haven't they? So it's not maybe been a true comparison looking back over, 2022 and 2021.
I think it's probably good for people that it's almost stabilised, because people are able to buy properties that are affordable. The prices had went a bit crazy.
Yeah. I think it's a good time still to buy and sell. And as we mentioned there, if you do have anything that you want to ask about your home specifically, or you're looking to put an offer in, then definitely get in touch with your solicitor, estate agent. I know that Kim would be more than happy to talk you through any of the questions you have on the stats. Kim is the expert on this. So yeah, but hopefully that has given you a good overview just as to what's been happening in Midlothian. But we do have our house price report, which is on ESPC.com. You can find a bit more granular data there. Or if you do have any more questions that you want answered, then please just let us know, and Kim and I can try our best to answer them for you. So yeah, that is the market overview. So I'll hand back to you, Karen.
All right, thank you so much, Ash and Kim. That was so informative, and hopefully it's given everyone who's attending some food for thought about what we can ask, or what they'd like us to expand on even. So I see there is some questions already in the Q&A box, which is great. But as we go, feel free to just pop them in. And like I say, we will do our very best to answer those for you before our time runs out today. And just to touch on what Ash says, we're going to send everything in an email, including this presentation, a recent house price report, and Kim's details, of course, if you'd like to get in touch with Kim, and of course us. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started on the pre-submitted questions that were filled out by some of the attendees today who asked them when they were submitting their attendance form. So Kim, I'm just going to run through some of those questions with you. Firstly, how are selling prices holding up in Midlothian this year?
For us, they're very stable, mostly home report and above.
Okay.
Absolutely, home report and above. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and we've got another question. Do you think interest percentage on a mortgage is likely to drop this year for buying a property?
Well, I would love to have a crystal ball and work that one out. However, I think, we're at 4% just now, is still really probably a good interest rate. It probably feels high because we've been lower, but historically it's not a bad rate. But yeah, I can't answer if that's going to change, I'm afraid.
It's difficult questions. I think there's even stuff about that news today, so it's ever changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we'd all know what we'd like to see. Well, the next one I've got for you is a little bit more specific, but I'm thinking since you're an expert in this area, maybe you could shed some light or offer advice. So this person is saying that their husband and theirself are retired and their son lives in Perthshire. They're thinking of moving to Scotland to be nearer to their son, and they're thinking of the area between Perthshire or Edinburgh and Bonnyrigg, but they have stayed in the areas, or they have visited and stayed in the areas before. And if we've got any advice on where would be suitable, perhaps in the Midlothian area, that would make accessing seeing their son a little bit easier.
Yeah, well, there's very much, Midlothian's a big place, and it really depends on what kind of property the lady's after. But what I would suggest is that one of the tools that we always tell people to use is, if you go onto the ESPC, then at the top right hand corner there is a sign up page, and I would invite her to put in the areas, maybe even keep it as specific as Midlothian, the maximum price that she was maybe looking to pay, and the minimum bed requirement, and keep it as basic as that, because you don't want to lose out on something that you may think that you're not interested in, but you may be, when you see the advert. But as soon as any agent who's affiliated with the SPC puts a property on the market that meets that criteria, then she will be emailed. And as soon as you've found your property, you can unsubscribe, so you're not bombarded. But it's a great tool, but we're happy to, we can do it obviously in the office as well, but once you've done it on the SPC, you're going to cover a wide variety of other agents as well. But certainly I would say that there are lots of places in Midlothian that are still very much accessible to heading up to Perthshire. We're very close to the bypass, so there's lots of options there.
Yeah, thank you very much. And our final question for the pre-submitted questions is which areas in Midlothian currently have the highest rental yield?
I would probably say places like Mayfield, Gorebridge and Dalkeith. There are areas there that have flats that you can maybe get cheaper. but you would still probably have a good rental income compared to maybe even some of the houses in the area, but you are getting them cheaper. So then obviously that's going to impact on the yield that you receive.
Thank you. So that's our pre-submitted questions all answered. If you do have any more, please ask in our Q&A box. So I'll get started on those now. We've got someone asking, their house on Penicuik has been on the market for over 2 months with sadly only 2 viewings. How do we compete against the new builds and their incentives? And they said their Cala house is only 2 years old and sitting at a fixed price. So a very specific question.
But obviously, without knowing the property, and one of the big things for me, if someone was asking these questions, was, you know, who is marketing it? How is it being marketed? Where is it being seen? Are your agents actively going back when you've had viewers and asking for feedback? And that's the difference. And how proactive are they? Yeah, it's tough, in some new builds do offer incentives, but they've only got so many properties, so yours is still there and readily available. It's not always that someone is looking for one that they want to wait 6 months on. So you know, it should still be attractive, but it depends how it's been marketed. It definitely has to be with an ESPC agent to get full market exposure, in my opinion. And I've been on both sides of the fence, so I am able to say that.
Solid advice. Okay, it looks like our final question of today then. Does percentage stat going to closing date mean that properties not going to closing date are selling to a single buyer? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, you know, we can give advice to our clients, but some clients are very specific in what they want. So yeah, it can go to single buyers, or we can very much, we will advise to go to a closing date, but people will have their own opinions for lots of reasons. They may need to sell very quickly, or they've decided that is enough money for them. They don't want to be greedy. They're quite happy to sell at that price. So there's lots of different scenarios. It really is dependent on the client. But we will give guidance and advice, and they will make their own mind up if that's what they want to do. But we are very much here to drive that for them.
Brilliant, fantastic. So that draws to a close our Q&A section of the webinar. But like I say, if there's any more questions, please do get in touch with myself at marketing@espc.com, or Kim will put her details in a follow-up email as well. Just a little request, we do have a survey going out in our follow-up email. So if you would kindly fill that out, let us know how we did, what information would you like to hear from us in future. That would really help tailor these to suit you guys as best as possible. Finally, just a wee note from ourselves, we have a first-time buyer event happening next Thursday, a week today, in our Property Information Centre on George Street. So if you or someone you know is a first-time buyer looking to get some information, and you get some free advice from mortgage advisors and one-to-ones with our solicitors, free glass of Prosecco, goodie bag, all the good stuff. So we hope to see you there if you're a first-time buyer or know someone who is. Finally, thank you to Kim and Ash for today. It has been fantastic and so informative. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone who attended and asked some questions. And yeah, we're always here for some more advice. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.